First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the show. My name is Bill Simmons. So glad you could join us here on a sunny Tuesday in California. Could not be happier about the Boston teams right now. Like it's an embarrassment of riches, and I know deep in my heart that this will never happen again. So I'm enjoying it as long as it lasts. Anyway, what we're going to do right now, before we get to the week 8 lines with Cousin Sal, we're going to call my buddy JackO at work and see what kind of frame of mind he's in between the Red Sox advancing to the World Series and the Yankee manager. They have no manager. So let's see what he thinks.
Hello, John O'Connell.
Johnny.
Oh, God, no. Oh, God, no.
Johnny!
Oh, God, no. This is the triumphant Red Sox are in the World Series phone call I've been dreading since April. God
it sure is.
No.
Johnny, it's time for a new segment.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, this one's called, Johnny, how excited should I be right now on a scale of 1 to 10? I'm going to say a 9.5.
A 9.5. Yeah, I thought you said not quite 5. I was like,
No.
Yeah, 9.5. Yeah, by all means. You should be about a 25, I think, actually, on a scale of 1 to 10.
Well, you have to win the World Series. I am a little afraid of this Rockies team.
Please, give me a break. Name 5 players on the Rockies.
You know what? I had this conversation with my dad the other day. I actually wish it had been recorded for this podcast because he was like, "Can you name 5 guys?" And I was like, "Well, actually, until mid-September, I couldn't have named 2, but I did watch a couple of their playoff games, and now I'm up to about 6 guys that I know the names, but I don't recognize them." And my dad was like, "Well, I know about that Todd Helton, and that's about it. That's all I know."
Your dad's like, "They still have Vinny Castilla?"
It is weird. The best thing we have going for us is the 8-day break.
Oh, God, yeah. I was just about to say that. I would feel much more confident in the Rockies if it was a week ago rather than a 9-day layoff,
Yeah. And
when you're hot like that, last thing you want to do is take 9 days off.
Well, and also, what are the odds of them winning Game 1 in Fenway against Beckett?
Nil. I'll give you the odds, nil. And I love how the paper today in Connecticut was hyping up the fact that they gave him his first loss of the season back in June. Give me a break. In Interleague, come on.
You'd think they'd have deer in the headlights in Game 1. You would think.
Of course they would. Absolutely.
It's a young team.
They've never been Fenway, the crowd will be rabid,
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively. And, there's no way they're beating Beckett in Game 1.
And then in Game 2, I assume we're starting Schilling. And then the Rockies will start their number 2 starter, whoever that person is.
Yeah, whose name is unknown to America.
I think his name is number 2 starter. But if we can win these first 2.
Well, what's the difference if you win the first 2 or lose the first 2? You've already come back from 3-0 and 3-1. So really, what's the difference? You're going to win the World Series.
Here's my ideal scenario: being up either 3-1 or 2-2. I guess would be not ideal, but it would be okay. But 3-1 would be great. Beckett in Game 5. Nobody realizes this about Beckett except the Red Sox fans, but he is awesome in these games when he has to pitch in the National League Park and he gets to hit. It pushes him to another level. He's actually a really good hitter.
Really?
Yeah, he is. He's. I'll tell you this much: I would bat him before Julio Lugo in the lineup. I would bat him 8th. I would bat him 8th, and I would bat Julio Lugo 9th. That's how good of a hitter he is.
Wow.
And the other thing is that he's one of those. There's some pitchers out there that they love to prove that they can hit. Like they were great in high school and they could do everything, and now they just pitch, but see, they're frustrated hitters.
Right, exactly.
He's one of those guys.
Like Dontrelle Willis is actually a better hitter than he is a pitcher at this point in his career. So
yeah, I actually think it's kind of a waste for Beckett to be in the American League. I feel like if you're a pitcher and you can hit, they should just kind of step in and say that you should just be in the National League because it's more fun.
Well, interestingly, this segues into something we've talked about in the past, which is the dumbest thing in sports, that when you play for the championship and one team doesn't get to use its DH.
Right.
Because it's so stupid. have a DH in one league and not in the other. It's like in football, if in the Super Bowl it was hosted in an AFC stadium and they said, sorry, we don't use running backs here. You can't have a running back. It's ridiculous.
It's one of the dumbest things ever. And then you look at a team like the Sox where Ortiz is the DH.
Right.
Lowell is the third baseman and Euclid is the first baseman.
Right.
Arguably four of the best hitters in three of the four best hitters in the team.
Right.
And we don't get to use one of them in any of the Colorado games.
I mean, they're going to have to play Big Papi at first and sit Euclid, right? Although he's batting like 500 in the postseason.
It's tough. I'm sure they'll play Big Papi, but I never envisioned a scenario where I would actually be okay if depending on who the pitcher was. Well, only because, lost in the comeback was the fact that he didn't look very good and he wasn't swinging the bat well, and it looked like he was in a lot of pain. I really worry about him limping around first base.
So that'd be amazing if they didn't have Big Papi in the lineup.
Well, if Colorado's a lefty starter, and I don't know this because I can only name 6 guys in their team, but if they did have a lefty starter and they benched him and you had Big Papi on the bench waiting to come in for a big pinch hit, I think that's psychological. That would be pretty
dangerous.
Nice.
Good point. That definitely factors into some decision making.
Yeah. Well, from what we know about Terry Francona, I don't think Big Papi will be sitting. The other interesting thing was if they just did a rock paper scissors to decide it.
Just put names in a hat.
Yeah, something that they could televise it would be exciting.
It would. I'm sure the Sox would slap some sort of marketing opportunity on it, so I'm sure they could find the sponsor. Maybe rock, paper, and scissors for first base and third base, sponsored by MasterCard. That's right. So maybe the fans could pay $20 to run for the opportunity to pick the guy to pick the name out of the hat.
That would be good. They could probably make like $5 million. That was the worst thing about last weekend. It was swept under the rug, but Larry Lucchino, who really needs to be stopped at this point.
Yes.
Urging all the Red Sox fans to wear red, like we're some sort of like expansion team that came into the league 10 years ago. We need the edge of red shirts in the stands.
It's ridiculous.
He needs to be stopped.
One thing when the Miami Heat have to wear white, because they've only been in existence for 15 years. But I think the Red Sox fans know what they're doing.
Yeah. Do you see red towels coming, Johnny, for us in the World Series?
It wouldn't shock me. Maybe red towels and red thunder sticks.
I have to say, and I would never make a statement like this lightly, if they handed out red towels and the Red Sox fans waved them during any of the home World Series games, that might be it for me.
Really?
Yeah, I might turn off the TV. I don't know if I could handle that.
Wow. Unbelievable.
That would be it. I would be in the mode where I just tell me how it turns out. I can't watch this.
Wow. It's strong
At some point, you have to have tradition.
Absolutely.
You can't just hand out red towels and it's okay when you're a team that's been around for 110 years playing in a ballpark that was built in 1912 or whenever.
I didn't think the Red Sox had any history prior to 2004. I thought that's when the franchise started. I didn't think we talked about anything prior to that.
We try to pretend that. It's funny, my dad and I were talking about that. It's the thing that's different about this playoffs versus all the other ones is that we get to enjoy the games without seeing the Babe Ruth pictures and the Buckner era, and it's just kind of like watching your favorite baseball team try to win.
If 2004 never happened, well, one, I'd be a lot happier, but two, it would have been interesting to see the reaction to being down 3-1. Like, it would have been it would have been the Titanic, you know?
Well, I wrote about this in today's column, but the pivotal, no, not the whole thing, just one part. The pivotal thing, my column's not up, by the way.
I was going to say, I didn't get this idea from that.
No, it takes them 4 to 5 hours to put my columns up for some reason. The play that would have killed
the obscenities and the misspellings.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not sure where it goes, but I send it and it just goes into a vortex for about 4 hours and then it emerges. But the play that would have killed the Fenway fans was that Lugo era. If that had happened pre-2004, Fenway, that would have been it. You would not have heard a noise for the rest of the game. It would have just been dead.
Ironically, I was protesting Game 7 and didn't watch it, but I felt the need to put it on, and that was the point that I put it on. When Lugo dropped it, I got excited, sat on the edge of my couch, figured this was the Buckner moment.
Right.
And then former Yankee Joel Skinner didn't send Kenny Lofton home for some unbeknown reason, or known only to Joel Skinner, and then the Casey Blake hit a double play, and that's when I clicked off the television at that point.
That was an amazing play.
Conclusion. And then, of course, I woke up and saw it was 11-2, so it turns out that wasn't as big a play as I might have hoped, but I really had hopes there for a minute that was going to be Buckner-esque.
I wrote about the play in my thing today, so I want to.
Don't spoil it.
I'm not double dipping. No, I just want to make it clear I'm not double dipping. It came up in our conversation, but that carom always freaks out the other team, whether they're defending it or they're trying to score on it. It's almost like it's such an unusual way that the ball comes off the wall. Nobody knows what to do unless they've seen it like 20 times.
Right. It comes off in like a perfect right angle. It's really strange.
But I have seen it. I've seen that carom go right to the shortstop. I've seen it go right to the left fielder. And I think as the carom was rolling, Skinner kind of froze, and then he just decided to hold it up. And Lofton wasn't really moving fast either.
No.
But the thing they forgot was that Manny, is Manny, and he's going to jog after. He's going to jog no matter what the situation is. So he jogs over the ball. He bends over. It takes 2 seconds to pick it up, and that's what they didn't weigh in. Now, I would argue that Joel Skinner should be a little more familiar with Manny's habits.
Yeah, it's an American League team. He's seen enough there. He was a Yankee, for God's sake,
Yeah, we play them a few times a year. They should know that Manny moves at one speed.
Right. The good news was it gave Tim McCarver something to pontificate about for about 5 minutes, so that everyone always enjoys that.
Well, you missed it. The first 3 innings, Westbrook struggled in each inning, but he was able to get out of it. And McCarver, over and over again, just talking about how the Indians needed to get somebody up. And Bucks joined in. And by the 3rd inning, they were basically saying Eric Wedge was Forrest Gump for not having anybody warming up, and I would bring somebody in right now, and it's all they were talking about. And then Westbrook basically 4th, 5th, 6th innings was unhittable, and they shut up, and it's like, well, yeah, that's why Tim McCarver was never a manager.
Pretty much.
And that's
one
why
of the
he's
reasons.
an announcer.
That's right.
Joe Buck was openly rooting for the Red Sox.
Yes, he usually is.
He didn't want any part of an Indians-Rockies World Series.
No, in this case it was understandable, but yeah.
So why didn't you watch Game 7?
Because once the Red Sox won Game 6, no, not Game 6, Game 5, I knew that they were going to come back and win the series. I've been down this road before 3 years ago, and believe me, I knew which way it was going. I just couldn't take it. I just can't take the Red Sox in the World Series. But
so what did you do? Did you just wander the streets of Hartford and reevaluate your life? Like, what happened?
No, I flipped between the Republican presidential debate and the NFL football game, the Steelers-Broncos game. It's good night all around.
You're supposed to be a sports fan. You're supposed to watch whoever is in the. It's Game 7 in the ALCS.
I know, but I knew the Red Sox were going to win, and I don't regret my decision. I stand by it. In fact, I just couldn't take it.
Did you see the J.D. Drew Grand Slam?
I heard it on the radio. I was driving home from a friend's house, and I had the game on the radio, and I got the bases loaded, nobody out, and Manny strikes out, and then Lowell popped up, and I had hopes, and then they went to 3-1 on J.D. Drew, and then I almost drove into a bridge abutment. I just couldn't believe it.
Well, when you were driving, did you think the road was just going to open up and swallow your car?
That's what I was going to say. I actually drove to a church because I thought the apocalypse was upon us. I was going to try and pray for my redemption.
You know what? It was all worth it. I'd pay him that $14 million again.
I know. That's what I said. I said every Red Sox fan now is going to be like just going crazy. A friend of mine who's a Red Sox fan, I had to suffer through all kinds of triumphant emails yesterday, and he said for upcoming Halloween he's going to go as a front runner in his brand new J.D. Drew jersey.
I had a reader email that his favorite part was the David Ortiz J.D. Drew arm bump handshake after the homer when it was obvious that David Ortiz didn't know who J.D. Drew was. They'd never met before.
He'd never met J.D. Drew.
What are you doing here at home plate, random guy?
They certainly didn't have a handshake worked out. That's probably the best part of the game because, they just had to make up that choreography on the fly right there.
Yeah, I found out some info on that. Apparently Victor Martinez, and I'm not making this up, has a handshake for each guy in the team.
It's unbelievable. How do you keep track of that?
I don't know, and that's what this guy said. Like he's like a handshake maniac, and for each guy, I guess each hitter, not the pitchers, because you don't need. When would you ever do a handshake with a pitcher?
Right.
But for each hitter, he has his own handshake that's worked out. So the thing that's amazing is, what does Kenny Lofton have? 10 homers this whole decade?
Right. Yeah. Do you think he has a binder, like an NFL playbook of all the handshakes? He's like, let me go to the Lofton one just in case.
Well. You would think with Kenny Lofton, he'd be like, maybe I'll skip learning that one because we're going to use it twice in the entire year. The other thing is, Kenny Lofton gets traded to the midseason. Does Martinez immediately spring it on him that they need to learn the handshake, or does he feel him out? When does that conversation come up?
It's probably when he walks into the clubhouse, he's like, before you get uniform, we need to work out a handshake. He's like, I'm thinking fist bump, forearm.
Kenny laughed and said, can I pick a jersey number first? Can we hold off on this? I need to find an apartment.
It's probably like during batting practice when he first joins the team. They're hanging out around the cage. He's like, we got to get a handshake for you. Welcome to the Indians, you know?
Yeah. Victor Martinez emerged from that serise as my favorite Indian for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, he was good.
He was the only hitter.
My favorite Indian is Travis Hafner, because I would appreciate it if he'd shown up in that series.
Pronk?
Yeah, exactly.
Apparently everybody in the Cleveland area knows this, but he got the name Pronk for reasons that may have emerged in the locker room shower.
Really?
Yeah. When they say he's half donkey.
They're not kidding, huh?
Yeah, they weren't kidding. And everyone in Cleveland loves when the national broadcasters say Pronk and how his name's Pronk, because it's like if you had a guy on your team named Tripod.
Right. Or like Randy Johnson, the big unit, because the public version of that story never really held any water for me in terms of that being his nickname, you know?
Yeah, anytime you get a 6'10" guy named the big unit.
Yeah.
But Victor Martinez, though, he was the only hitter that didn't seem scared.
Folks, welcome back from the part that was just cut out of this week's podcast.
He was the only. I think that one has a chance to stay in.
You
I
think
don't know
so?
if it crossed
Really?
any
There
lines.
won't be an awkward gap that doesn't make any sense there? That's good.
Well, it's possible.
Yeah.
Victor Martinez, though, he was the only hitter who wasn't scared. He had handshakes for each guy on the team. And if that's not enough, he cried after Game 7. I always have a soft spot for the guys who they watch the celebration.
That much.
Well, they're sitting in the dugout watching the other team celebrate and kind of like tearing up a little bit.
Right.
I feel like I'd be one of those guys.
Yeah, I would definitely. You'd have to want it that much.
You know, I remember when we played stickball at Holy Cross, freshman, sophomore year of college.
We lost the Wheeler Championship. Yeah, it was emotional stuff.
No, you and I were never on the same team because we were arch rivals. But I remember when my team would beat you, which was often, you would just storm off. You wouldn't do the Victor Martinez where you'd watch the celebration afterwards with tears welling up in your eyes. You'd just storm off and slam the door.
Exactly. Flip over the post-game spread, that type of thing, right?
I meant to ask you about this. You know, I get the Crusader, our Holy Cross. JackO and I went to College of the Holy Cross, Worcester, Massachusetts. They now have, in the newspaper, which they mail to me every week, they cover stickball like it's a real sport.
Come on.
I swear to God. They have entire page sections with This Week in Stickball, and they have all these team names, and they call it Wheeler Beach. I swear to God.
So that's an outrage.
Part of it's an outrage, but part of it's kind of cool because I feel like we were partly responsible for the whole stickball
carrying
tradition.
The tradition on. It was taught to us by older guys in our dorm, you know, and we carried it on. But now, I mean, it's an outrage they didn't have it when we were there, you know?
Well, yeah, because back when we were there, they covered the real sports. But I just love the fact that stickball, which was really one of those things we did to procrastinate because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cable TV, like we had nothing that they have now in college. Right. And now it's evolved into this organized sport that they play in lieu of studying or doing anything productive. In that way, I feel honored.
Part of me, I don't know, part of me liked it when it was underground from the streets, you know?
When it was cultish?
All this organization and coverage in the paper, you know, we were out there with a beer can in one hand and a tennis ball in the other, you know?
Well, Johnny, I was thinking for spring weekend.
Let's go back, baby.
I think we fly back. Or I think I fly back.
I can drive there.
You meet me, the Blue Boy meets me, and I think we challenge these young bucks.
That's it. It's the old timers. It's one for the ages.
I think we bring a camera crew, and we have like Gus Van Sant maybe turns it into a documentary.
I'm going to start getting my arm loose right now.
You should.
Start spring training now in October.
You know, for those of you who don't know, and obviously wouldn't because none of you go to Holy Cross, but Wheeler was this 5-story dorm, and the whole goal with the stickball was you try to hit the ball over the 5-story dorm. And if it hit the wall, if you caught it off the wall, it was an out.
That's right.
If you went over the wall, it was a homer. And
depending what floor you hit, it was either a double or a triple.
Yeah, and there was some fun elements where windows would break. You'd have balls go into windows, which is always a controversy whether that should have been a homer or not. And then probably at least 10 near fistfights freshman year.
Indeed. From
the whole thing. You would brush back people.
Right, yeah, it was a headhunter.
But for some reason, for some reason it's lived on. I couldn't be prouder.
It's excellent. It's good, and they've sort of reconfigured that area now, so it's got to be a little bit more challenging. I think they've added some trees and stuff. So
let me ask you quickly, the Yankee manager.
Yes.
Who are you hoping for?
Well, either Girardi or Mattingly. I think flip a coin. I think they're going to be the same guy, so I don't think it really makes much difference. So bummed out by what they did to Torrey, which was just outrageous, and more bummed out about the direction of the team with Steinbrenner's two sons who I don't think know their way out of the room running the show, and Randy Levine and Cashman, who's a gutless weasel, and I'm just no hope. I'm just so despondent. There's just no direction. I mean, those two idiots who've been away from, never had any involvement in the Yankees are now going to swoop in and take over. I don't have any hopes whatsoever.
I have to say, as a Red Sox fan, the thought of two legacy sons who've never done anything in their lives coming in to take over the New York Yankees is, I mean, this could be like James Dolan times two.
Oh, it definitely could. You look at James Dolan, you look at the Mets where Fred Wilpon's son runs the show, you look at the Orioles where Peter Angelo's sons were far too involved in running the team.
You look at the United States.
Well. What's that?
You look at the United States.
No comment. But yeah, I mean, it's a nightmare, I just have no hope, and those guys are just, I don't know. It's just, oh God, I don't know what to say. I'm not happy.
Well, this is beautiful because I'm ecstatic, and you're just a stammering, unhappy mess.
I know. I can't even talk about it coherently or even semi-coherently. It's awful. Yeah, it's really bad times. The dark ages for the Yankees could be coming here for a while.
It's my favorite podcast we've ever done. Johnny,
yeah,
we'll call you next week. Hopefully the Red Sox.
Is Kevin Millar going to throw out any first pitches again in the biggest outrage in the history of sports?
Hey, come on. We had the Cowboy Up. We needed the leader of the Cowboy Up.
Oh, my God. And he's still under contract with the Orioles. It's outrageous. Outrageous.
You're grasping for straws.
I really am.
Grasping for straws. We'll call you next week. Johnny, as always, a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Now's the time in the show when we go over the weekly NFL lines. As always, Cousin Sal Iacono from Jimmy Kimmel Live joins us. What he does is he makes his guesses for this week's spread. He writes them down. Then he calls me. He reads me the matchups. I try to guess the lines, and we see which one is closer. Cousin Sal, how's it going?
What's happening, Bill?
You excited?
Yeah, I'm excited, although I think this is officially the halfway point. No, next week? I don't know.
No, it's after next week would be the...
After next one, not including playoffs, but...
Right.
Yeah, I think both of us are, I don't know if you talk about it a lot, but we're expecting children and not looking forward to it because it kind of means the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
Well, I have, we're probably, by the next time I do this podcast, we're going to have the kid. And
that'll be it, right? Yeah.
His timing is just impeccable. It really
well,
is.
root for the Patriots to lose this week, so that big matchup doesn't mean anything.
By the way, a note to all the prospective parents out there: do not bring up potentially inducing the kid on an off day of a World Series. It goes over really badly.
It's not a good idea?
Yeah, with a 9-month pregnant person who's crazy anyway, it's not good.
Yeah, but I tried it with WNBA playoffs last year, and she flipped out, so I could see, yeah.
What did you think of the Colts last night?
I think they're good, man. I think their defense is solid. I think
their
only a few quarterbacks are going to be able to beat them.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I think you got your work cut out for you a little bit.
Yeah, I think I thought that was a really impressive performance. Granted, the backup QB coming in killed the Jags, but it's pretty clear. The Pats are 1, the Colts are 2, and then I think there is a little drop-off before you get to the next level.
Yeah, I agree. Colts are 1, Pats are 2, and then there's everyone else.
How dare you?
Well, that's the first game, Indianapolis at Carolina.
Vinny Testaverde?
It's going to be Testaverde, I guess, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to include the Colts tax here and say Indy by 10.
Wow. I said 7.5. They only opened at 6.5. So really? I get that one. I don't know what they're thinking there. Yeah, you're like I said. Testaverde is not one of the few quarterbacks that are going to beat this defense.
Well, also it seems like, wow, I'm shocked by that one.
Yeah.
Because you have to basically outscore the Colts to beat them.
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah.
Well, no, but I know that sounded like Theismann. No, I mean it's going to be more of a shootout than like a 13-10 type game because they're going to get their 25 points.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. The only thing I can think of is it's a shorter week and maybe they're looking ahead or something. But yeah, that still seems low.
I'm not sold on that Carolina team at all. Who have they beaten? Anybody?
No, nobody good. All the garbage teams in their division.
Well, that's a tease. I'm teasing them.
Yeah, Cleveland at St. Louis, also an early game.
Cleveland's in that group with like Kansas City and a couple other mediocre teams that actually aren't bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Browns are like almost decent.
So yeah, I do too. I mean, I guess we'll know after this week, but that's 3 wins already.
Well, I'm going to say Browns by 4.
We split that one because I said Browns by 2 and it's Browns by 3. So we're right in the middle there.
Man, if the Rams are going to win a game this season, it's probably has to be this
well,
week, right?
I think, and we'll get to Miami in a minute, but I think they're a little worse, the Rams, just slightly worse. Their offensive line's pitiful.
Well, are you including the Ronnie Brown thing, though?
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know. This week will tell it all.
The Ronnie Brown thing, I think, pushed Miami past them.
Yeah, maybe. Oakland at Tennessee.
Wow, that Tennessee was probably the Vegas sportsbook moment of the year, right?
Wasn't that
game?
something? That's something.
The
Vince Young, they think, is starting this week.
Collins?
Vince Young, they think,
Vince Young
is going to start, yeah.
Oakland at Tennessee.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Tennessee by 7.5.
We split that, too. I said 6.5. It's 7. So, all right, we're getting good at this.
The Raiders team kind of screwed you over last week a little.
Yeah, they did. They did. I had them in our pool big time. I don't know. I just I figured they'd win at home. They win when you don't expect them to win, right?
Yeah, I think there's about 7 or 8 teams that you just can't take if they're giving points under any circumstances.
Yeah.
They're probably one of them.
Here's one of them, Cincinnati, home against Pittsburgh.
What a garbage cover that was.
Oh, that was lousy.
Jets up by 10 at halftime and they don't cover?
Well, that they didn't cover, yeah, I see.
Well, and then how about the Jericho Cotchery 10-point fantasy catch?
That's what I was
on the last play of the game.
That's going to be it could be Pennington's last completion as a starter. That and the conversion.
Yeah, I think once a QB starts throwing that out pass that hangs up there the extra 3 seconds, and then the defensive back just runs in full speed and catches it.
Yeah.
That's always like the final sign that you need to make a change, right?
Yeah, he should always throw Hail Marys because it's as good a chance of completing it as the 8-yard out that lofts up there forever.
Yeah, that was bad. I don't know, though, that Kellen Clemens would have made much of a difference for them this season.
Maybe not.
So,
but which game are we doing? Pittsburgh at Cincinnati?
Oh, Pittsburgh at Cincy. Yeah, and that Pittsburgh team, that was a terrible game. Mm-hmm. That Denver game. It was a terrible job by them.
Yeah, they should show up more on the road. I don't get it with them.
Well, everyone's trying to figure out who the best teams 3, 4, and 5 are. Mm-hmm. And it seemed like Pittsburgh was definitely one of those 3, and now I think they've been replaced by the Giants.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Pittsburgh by 2.5.
Wow, we split this again. It's 3.5, and I said 4.5. So 3 splits in a row for us. But I think Pitt rolls. I think that Cincinnati's they've always been soft. This is the softest they've ever been, and Pittsburgh's got to kind of step up, right?
Yeah, but do you think that they've been using Chad Johnson as an scapegoat?
Yeah. Did you see the bit we did last night on it?
Yes.
We had a live scapegoat outside the studio with a siren on its head.
I'll tell you, everybody talks about Brady and the Pats, but Emmitt Smith quietly is putting together just as record-breaking of a season.
He's the MVP of football, right?
He really is. It's gotten to the point where I get excited to see him.
Oh, boy.
I don't know if you saw him and Steve Young after the Colts game yesterday, but it was Stu Scott moderating.
Over whether the Patriots-Colts game is a big game, right?
Well, and Emmett's expert take on the Colts was that Peyton Manning makes them go. Mm-hmm. And
interesting.
So then Steve Young had to figure out a way to argue with that.
Yeah.
It's just great. I would re-sign him for 5 years.
I know, they really should. If he didn't have such a flourishing career as a dancer, you'd think he'd step up and sign a big contract.
Speaking of interviews, you didn't happen to see the Chad Johnson, Keyshawn Johnson interview, did you?
No, what happened?
Keyshawn interviewed Chad Johnson, and Chad Johnson somehow turned the tables on him.
Really? They're brothers, aren't they?
No, they're not brothers.
Oh, they're not related?
I think they are related somehow. But Keyshawn asked something about have you been a distraction this season, and Chad Johnson really kind of masterfully turned it around, and it got to the point where Keyshawn just wanted to end the segment. It was insane. It was an insane 5 minutes of TV.
I think Keyshawn just wants to end his life when he sees Vinny Testaverde on the field, and he can't sign up for the team. But all right, what do we have? Philly at Minnesota. This one threw me a little bit.
It's at Minnesota, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Minnesota's a decent home team. I'm going to say Mini by 1.
All right, I said Mini by 3, and it's Philly by 1. So you're right.
Wow.
But why the hell? Why are they favored on the? I don't get why Philadelphia is seen as a better team than Minnesota. Really.
Well, and the other thing is the Philly fans, they're almost in root against the team, play Kevin Cole, try to go for the draft pick mode. They're like one more loss away from snapping into that.
Both the teams are 2-4. Philly, I don't know. Like Minnesota plays nice defense. They have an explosive running game. Minnesota should be favoring this game. I like them.
Your team went against Minnesota last week and would have lost if not for one Tavares Jackson.
Oh, stop it.
Describe your emotions when your team's fate rests in the hands of Tavares.
My team's fate didn't rest in it. The Vikings' fate rested in it.
Well, your team too.
I said at halftime we would win that game 24-14, and that's what it ended up being.
He's
bad. A better quarterback would have beaten us Sunday, that's for sure.
That guy Quentin Gray, do you think he's a poor man's Tavares or a homeless man's Tavares?
From last night? Ooh, yeah. Wow. I think he's a Hollywood Boulevard fake superheroes man's Tavares Jackson. It's a whole different category. But I like Minnesota in that. And then there's Detroit at Chicago is the last. Oh, no, it's not the last 1 p.m. game, but Detroit at Chicago.
Chicago kind of saved their season with the no timeouts, 97-yard drive.
Yeah,
engineered by one Brian Greasy.
You don't give Brian Greasy that much time left. You don't. I don't know how many times you have to be bitten by it. But
I'm going to say Chicago by 7.
Ooh, a little high. I said 4.5. It's 5. Yeah, I mean, I guess just because Detroit's 4-2 and Chicago's 3-4, they made it a little closer.
The Lions haven't come within 30 points of anybody in the road.
They're a weird team, aren't they?
That's nuts. I think that's another teaser. That's another teaser, right?
Chicago and India is looking like so far, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Just betting we're legal. And then we travel to London from Giants and Miami. Miami gets a home game out of this.
Poor Miami. As if the beating against the Pats wasn't enough and they lose Ronnie Brown and now they have to fly to London.
Yeah. Yeah, lost
That's
Ronnie Brown, traded Chris Chambers the week before, Trent Green out with a concussion. He's done for the year. I don't know. This is what the Brits get for sending us Beckham.
Yeah, this is a fair exchange.
Yeah, right? Have fun watching Cleo Lemon, Marty Booker, and the great Jesse Chapman. This is American football.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how scared are you of the Giants right now?
We're going to look up, and they're going to be 10-3. I mean, I like to make excuses, but how is this a playoff team schedule? Like, they avoid the Saints, but they get to play the Falcons, and now this counts as a road game for them, even though it's in, they're going to kill Miami. I don't know. It's starting to come together for them, and it's not even like Manning is stepping it up,
Their front seven is really good. Like they can definitely do one thing. They can get to the passer.
Yep, they rush the passer.
I think they're pretty good. I really do, and they always seem to make 2 big plays a game on offense.
I know. I'm going to say it. They're good.
I'm going to say Giants by 14.5.
Wow. I said 9, and it's 10. Oh, you're going to love that game. Yeah. Yeah, it's only 10 in the neutral site.
Who the hell is going to take Miami getting 10 points in that game?
I don't know. I don't see them scoring at all.
Do they score a touchdown in that game?
It's bad when the best thing you could say about your team is maybe the other team will be more jet lagged than you, right? Like that's the only thing going for the Dolphins in this game.
I'm shocked. That is, in my opinion, the most shocking line of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
The Giants on a neutral field, the Giants are 2 touchdowns better than the Dolphins.
Yeah, and they'll be down 2 touchdowns at some point during that game for sure.
Shocked. Okay, let's go.
All right, Buffalo at the Jets. This is actually an easy spread to pick. Yeah, I hit it exact. You'll get it too.
Jets by 3.
There you go. Jets by 3. Equal
Like that
teams, I
Buffalo
guess.
team. I think that Buffalo team's a little frisky.
Yeah, they're fine.
And the Jets, it looks like, I mean, really, every wheel has come off.
Mangini, I don't know. Somehow the karma gods look at a snitch. I mean, to think of what happened to both these teams once that whole thing was exposed, it's amazing.
You know what? People email me asking, like, why I think that was bad what Mangini did. Like, it wasn't bad that he sold, if he was any other coach and he did what he did, but Belichick, like, gave this guy, like, his whole career.
Yeah.
Like, there's really no precedent for what he did. Like, and from the get-go, when he got that Jets job, he was, like, trying to steal Pat's assistants and trying to steal their players and, like, was totally, like seedy and sleazy about the whole thing, and then capped off with this camera thing. But it's kind of a weird way to treat the guy who gave you, like, every professional break you've had.
It is. You're right. It's Zabisco for San Martino. You're right. It's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
But let's go to your game now. Washington at New England.
I'm actually a little worried about this game.
Oh, come on.
No, I am. I think Washington, I think they're pretty good.
They're good. They're a decent NFC team, but
I'd be less worried if the New England defense was playing better. Like, very quietly, they've been one
Well,
match
let's see how
above
worried
mediocre.
you are. What do you think the spread is?
11.5.
Oh, wow. You are worried. I said 14.5, and it's 16.
Really?
I think they're just done with getting busted, the bookies, on the people taking the Pats.
This is
Too
so.
easy.
We had the Colts tax, which was always 3 points, but now we have a 6-point
It's like
Patriots
6,
tax.
yeah. I know.
Jesus.
I just want to see that. I mean, this is nice what the Patriots are doing, but honestly, would they consider ever playing without the spy cameras? Like, I think they would still be good, right? Like, they wouldn't win by 40. All right, I'll leave it alone.
You know, the one thing I will say about this Pats thing is it's great as it is, but the Moss thing pushes it to a whole other level. He's so exciting. Every time they throw downfield, it's like breathtaking.
It's outrageous. I don't
You have
want
to admit,
take
as an innocent bystander,
Brady, but he can just basically throw it up at this point, right?
well, wouldn't you say as an innocent bystander, this is like almost like Bo Jackson level, like watching this guy just jump over 2 guys and catching the ball?
Yeah.
I've never seen. I mean, he did it like in the late '90s, but
Yeah.
no other receiver has ever done stuff like that.
But
We've never
wouldn't
seen it
you
before.
demand a trade much earlier out of Oakland or wherever you were if you knew you were able to do all this? Like, wouldn't you make it work and just not be lazy for 2 years in which you could have gotten hurt?
Right.
Oh, man.
Well, I think he's a front runner,
Yeah.
and I think I don't think he ever really realized the whole grass is greener thing. Like, until he played with Brady and saw the way the Pats do things, and I think he just kind of got caught up in it. I mean, he's like unrecognizable. It's like he had a personality transplant.
Yeah, you're right.
It makes it almost should be a game show now where we should see which questionable character NFL guy could go on the Pats and turn his life around. Like, how questionable would we have to get?
Interesting.
Yeah, you sound really interested.
All right, you have Carrot Top lining up at tight end. We'll figure it out. All right, New Orleans at San Francisco.
Does New Orleans win this division?
Man, they can come back and do it, huh?
They're only like 2 games back. If Carolina loses this week, which they will to Indy, New Orleans wins this, they're a game back.
Well, Tampa's 4-3, yeah.
It's at San Fran,
At
right?
San Fran.
I'm going to say New Orleans by 2.5.
All right, you get that because that actually you hit it exact. Because I thought San Fran would be favored by 1. And
They stink.
I know, but what has New Orleans done? They beat Atlanta. They squeaked one out. They're both 2-4. San Fran's home. Alex Smith is back.
I have to say I have Frank Gore in my other league, not the one that I'm in with all of your friends that I'm 7-0 and just completely reread in the record books.
Right.
I'd almost rather have had Frank Gore get hurt in week 1 and be out for the season than what he's doing.
I know, it's terrible.
He's in that no man's lane where it's like he still makes my team look good on paper, but he's terrible every week. And I just would rather he went away.
And yet I think he's 3rd in the league in rushing yards. I could be wrong, but
I don't think he has a touchdown yet, does he?
has,
or maybe he has 2 in 1
opening
week.
night he had a touchdown against Arizona because I have him in our league, so I know that. But.
God, I feel like he's.
No, he can't break anything. I know. You're waiting for him to do something.
So frustrating.
It doesn't happen. But let's go to your guy, LT, and his Chargers host Houston.
You mean the guy that everybody thought that it was unfair that I got him?
That was a savvy pick at number 1. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, I don't know how I won last week by 17 points when he had a bye week. I must have done something right.
Listen, even God hates your fantasy team. He's chasing LT out of his home with these wildfires.
Do you realize Wes Welker is the 7th highest point getter at receiver this year?
Who's higher? There's more? There's bigger than him?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
What a disaster.
It is amazing. I don't even send trash-talking emails anymore. It's like the results speak for themselves.
You saw what happened today, right? I don't want to get too inside, but like a month ago, our friend Tony offered these other guys, Steven Jackson for Ronnie Brown straight up, and never withdrew the offer.
Oh, no.
And today they accepted it. So it's all the talk around the office.
and that's the wrong person to do that
exactly.
too.
There's going to be another explosion. It may cut into the news other than these fires.
I don't think I ever told this story, but like 3 weeks ago, Tony had sent me that Tomlinson. It was Jones, Drew, and Brandon Marshall for Tomlinson. Like, just obviously I'm going to reject that. And as I'm rejecting it, I accidentally pressed accept, and then he held LT hostage over me. And I was like Mel Gibson in Ransom. I was like, "Give me back LT!"
I can't believe we haven't heard of a fantasy football related death yet. I mean, what does it have to take?
I think I predict that it will happen in the next 2 years.
All right.
Yeah, I do. This San Diego is a neutral site?
No, well, it might be after the whole town burns down. They may have to play in Tijuana.
Jeez.
It's in San Diego right now.
San Diego is such like a beautiful place. It's always weird to think like they would have fires there.
I know.
Like I can see it in Hollywood Hills, but like San Diego's like so lush.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say San Diego by 11.
All right, that's a good call. I said 9 and it's 10, so I guess we split that.
Is Matt Schaub out for that game?
They're thinking he is out. I don't know. Houston was down by 30 that whole game, right? Last week. Maybe San Diego does run it up.
They stink.
Yeah. Jacksonville at Tampa Bay.
Is this Sunday night or Sunday afternoon?
No, there's no Sunday night because of World Series coverage. Yeah. This is the last Sunday afternoon game.
Tampa Bay by 2.5.
It's 4.5. I said 5.5. So.
Oh, wait a second.
All right, I'll give you another chance because it's going to be Quincy Gray or whatever his name is.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
Well, we'll call that a push then.
No, I would have said Tampa by 6, so you probably would have won it anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't realize the poor man's Tavares was involved. David Gerard's out with the high ankle sprain?
What's that? Who?
He's out, Gerard?
I think so, yeah.
Is it Gerard or Gerard? I hear it both ways.
I think Gerard. It's not going to matter next year. But, I mean, these are two playoff-bound teams that I can't stand to watch 2 minutes of this game, right?
Yeah, but, you know, we always seem surprised by this, but every year there's 3 terrible teams in the first round.
That make it, yeah.
Yeah, and we're always like, and that's actually good for gambling standpoint, you know?
All right, let me count these up. So it's 10 on my side, including ties, and, oh, Billy, you have 7. So this game doesn't mean anything. I'm going to beat you again.
You're destroying me.
Green Bay at Denver.
A couple readers have called into question your honor system and demanded that we have a neutral.
Know, we could turn it around, although I guess that won't matter either. But
what is it? Denver at Green Bay?
Green Bay at Denver. Denver
Bay
gets another home night game, 2 in a row.
I'm not going to get sucked in by this Denver team.
Well, you won't be watching anyway because the Rockies are going to be closing out your Red Sox in Game 5.
How dare you?
This Monday.
I'm going to say Green Bay by 1.
Green Bay by 1?
Yep.
I said Denver by 4. It's Denver by 3.
Really?
Denver home, yeah.
Against Green Bay?
I think it's just an AFC, NFC thing they're looking at.
Denver's terrible. They played one good week. They're favored by 3 against a team that's 5-1.
I don't know. It's a tough one. I just think they give the nod to the AFC team at home.
I love Green Bay in that game. I feel like I TiVo'd the Denver game and watched it after. That was like one of those kitchen sink games. They had 2 weeks to prepare for it. They threw everything they possibly could at the Steelers, and they barely won.
They did seem like they were looking to lose that game, whatever they could do down the stretch.
I don't get it. Well,
you think Madden takes his Monday Night Football post back for 1 week when he hears Brett Favre's on the slate?
What is the Red Sox-Rockies World Series?
Well, you guess it.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah, I do know what it is, but you
is it Red Sox minus 220?
Wow, good call. Right on.
What is it? That's what it is?
Yep.
Oh.
Minus 220.
Well, I figured they'd be 2-1.
It should be higher. I don't know. I don't know about these guys. I really don't. Pedroia staring at the ball now. Oh, I'm so bitter over the Mets.
You don't like a 5'7" guy flipping his bat and watching his own homer? Come on. You're just all you New York fans are just.
It really is your year, really Boston. What are we going to do? They're going to win the whole thing.
I don't know if it's our year yet, but we have our fingers crossed. Cousin Sal, you kicked my ass again.
All right,
and we can look forward to your picks on JimmyKimmelLive.net, right?
Yeah, 8-6 last week, and whatever. I'll continue the mediocrity, I promise.
I was 8-6 too. All right, we'll talk to you later.
Take care, Bill. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, that's going to wrap up the show. One note, I guess the Jacksonville quarterback is named Quinn Gray, which I was kind of half-heartedly watching the game last night, to be honest. But Quinn Gray is his name. We called him about 4 different names. More importantly, the round man of rebound, Charles Barkley, is going to join us on a very special podcast. Looking forward to that one. Looking forward to getting his thoughts on the Celtics and the 2007-2008 NBA season. So we'll see you tomorrow with that.
Target to San off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.